Prudent Money with Bob Brooks is sponsored by the Prudent Money Foundation on 91.3.
Well, deceptive automotive problems that can cause inconvenience. Today we're going to take a look. Stay tuned for the special Car Corner edition of Prudent Money. Bob Brooks, and you are listening to the special Car Corner edition of Prudent Money. Thank you so much for joining me today. You know I do appreciate it. Tony Joe is in the studio today and is here to take your Car Corner questions. The number to call is 1-877-913-5357. You can also go to the website at www.prudentmoney.com. Send a question in, and we'll get you taken care of. Phone number for today, though, is 1-877-913-5357. Well, Tony Joe, how are you doing today?
I am doing well.
You would be doing much better if I turned up your mic.
Mm-hmm. I appreciate that.
I really don't do that on purpose.
I know. You say that, but I don't know. Anyway, I'm doing fine. Thanks for asking. How are you?
I'm good. I'm a little disturbed because
I know that. All the listeners know that.
You're funny. You know, the similarities. That's funny. A friend of mine's calling me right now. That I've known for 37 years. Mm-hmm. We figured this out the other day. And he knows that I have a radio show
at 3 o'clock. Right.
And he's calling me.
Wives, kids, and friends.
Yeah.
They all do that.
They all do that. So.
Do like I do. Just don't carry a phone. Just don't own one. And that will never happen. Hey, Bob, let me ask you, has that ever happened to me on this side of the table?
No, I can't say that it has.
And you know why?
Because you don't really have a phone.
Correct.
Well, you see what the great thing about listening to the Prudent Money radio show is that now everybody that listens can say, that guy, that one person who doesn't own a phone, it's Tony Joe.
Yep. There's somebody in this world that actually doesn't own a cell phone.
And, you know, I razz you about that, but I think that's pretty cool that you don't own a cell phone.
Mm-hmm. Well, you know, I've purchased many of them, though. Bob, I bought one for each one of my kids when they turned 16. And back then, you had to sign a 2-year contract and slap your credit card down, and then you had minutes, remember?
Mm-hmm.
Did you have a phone back when you went over your minutes? Well, my kids always went over their minutes.
And
I'd yell at them and pay the bill. And
I'm quite a bit older than your kids, but I had a bag phone. You remember the bag phone? The portable phone, they came in a bag you pulled out. It just looked like a regular receiver.
No, I don't remember that. But
really?
What they called it, a bag phone?
It was a bag phone. Yeah.
I remember the ones in the cars. Customers used to come in. They had great big huge box with a receiver on it, a telephone receiver.
You know,
thing looked like it weighed a ton.
The receiver with the cord was a cool look, I thought. I always thought mounted in your car, it was really a cool look. But anyway, I still miss the old, you wouldn't even know.
The bag phone.
Yeah, the bag phone. Go figure.
I knew a female that played the bagpipes in high school in a marching band.
This story's going south.
Okay, never mind.
So anyway, you know how we talk about teaching your kids about money so that they don't make mistakes, they don't get taken, they get a fair deal, all that kind of
Trying to
thing.
protect them with information, right?
Well, without question. And then once again, the similarities between what you do for a living, what I do for a living. You got to teach your kids about what goes on, and not every. No, I'm not trying to put every mechanic in a box and stereotype. Just the ones who are going to take advantage of the situation. Mm-hmm. See a kid coming in, or anybody that walks in looking a little bit clueless. That would be me. Only on the cars thing.
No comment.
So, yeah, I didn't want to tee you up and for that one. So, my son goes to get his oil changed before he comes back driving from North Carolina to Dallas. Mm-hmm. And I said, as a safety catch-all, I said, Blaine, if you're going to take your car to get the oil changed and they offer you anything else, or you have a choice of anything, call me first.
Good.
And so I thought, that's going to cover everything. Now, I'm not really sure if he had synthetic oil in his car to begin with. I couldn't tell you, or if it was regular oil. But they didn't ask anything. They didn't give him any choices or anything, and they put the most expensive oil in that car. Oil change was $70 in Hickory, North Carolina.
Well, let's start off by examining the synthetic oil thing. And I am not a big proponent of fully synthetic oil. Is it better? Yes. Does it lubricate better? Yes, it does. It does all the things that you want it to do better. However, I believe in using what we call a synthetic blend, which is basically organic oil with some additives in it, which is about the cheapest oil you can buy now. Now, I don't mean cheap oil like Walmart unbranded oil that has no name on it. I'm talking about less expensive oil. And the reason, just to remind you, Bob, I know you want to talk about your son's oil change, but the reason I'm not a big proponent of synthetic oil is because even though you're using synthetic oil, the same oil filter is being used regardless of what kind of oil you use. And that oil filter needs to be replaced every now and then. And it needs to be replaced many, many miles before the oil is recommended to be replaced. Some of the mobile ones that can go 25,000 miles without changing it, maybe so. I wouldn't dare ever try it, but maybe it could. But I know that filter needs to come off after about 5,000 miles maximum.
They changed the filter.
No. What I'm saying is I don't like synthetic because of that reason.
Right. Gotcha.
Because if you had to change the oil filter 5,000 miles into your 25,000 miles, then you're going to waste a quart when you take that filter off, because it holds about a quart. Then you're going to have to replace the filter anyway. You're doing all this inconvenient stuff. Then you've got to add another quart of that expensive Mobil 1 to bring it back up to the full level. So I'm not a real big proponent of full synthetic. However, in your son's case, he probably didn't know any better.
No, he didn't.
And
That's my
they
fault.
didn't ask him, because he's a young person, and they didn't really ask him. They just put in probably an okay product. It's not going to hurt anything, Bob. It's just a little more expensive than he needed. But for what it's worth, I mean, when
really
kids are 18 years old, isn't he 18? I mean,
No,
they
he's
don't know.
20.
Okay.
But the thing is, I guess it wasn't the cost. Well, a little bit of it was the cost. It kind of ticked me off. But it was, did he do something harmful to his car? It's the first, because you mixed up, if it's on one type of oil, you've always said it's best to keep it on one type of oil.
Right. Okay, well, we can talk about that after. Let's examine that. It's a good topic. If you
1-877-913-5357. Let's talk to Debbie from Fort Worth. Debbie, welcome to the program. What's on your mind today?
Hi, I have a 2013 Toyota Sienna van, and I guess it was last year the air conditioner stopped cooling very well, and we added whatever you call it, the refrigerant, and it didn't change. Now, it's a weird thing. It takes it about almost 10 minutes to start cooling at all, even if it's a 70-degree day. So that's one thing that's odd to me. And the other thing is, it does cool, but it doesn't cool enough. If it's 85 or 90 or above, it's not nearly adequate.
Okay.
So I'm wondering what I'm looking at.
Okay. Just let me ask you a couple of things. Did you have the refrigerant added by a shop, or did you put it in, your husband put it in? I mean, my
brother put it in.
Okay. Now, the next question is, does this Sienna van have rear air as well as front air?
Yes.
Okay. Did you by chance know if he was running the rear air on full max when he put the Freon in?
I don't think so.
Okay. Simple overlook here. What you're going to have to do is get your brother back out there, grab him by the scruff of the neck, get him back out there with his gauges and his can of Freon. You got to turn both units on full blast. No, by that I mean you turn the front unit on high blower, you turn the temperature all the way down into the blue or cold as it'll go, put it on max AC. You do the same thing in the rear. You want it on high blower, you want it working. We're trying to get the air conditioner to really struggle. We want it to really work hard. And the other tip I will give you when you're trying to get that air conditioner to work hard is open the back hatch, the back tailgate, and roll all the windows down. We want to invade the inside of the car with as much heat as we can get in there. Then have him refill it. He will find out it's going to take more now. Now, we don't want to overfill it, but we do want to fill it back up to where when you're done filling it, I don't know if he's using gauges or if he knows.
Yeah, it's just something we bought at auto supply place that had gauges on it.
Okay, well, if he's got gauges, then that's good. And we want, when you're done, just so you know, when you're done, both front and rear units, if you had a little thermometer you could stick up in there, should be blowing about the same temperature, within a degree or two.
Okay.
And that way you'll know it's full. Okay?
All right. So you think that's the problem, not some compressor going out or something like that?
Well, if it gets cold, the compressor isn't the problem. Compressor can't be bad if it gets cold at all.
Well, it gets cool.
Hey, Debbie,
but,
hang on with us over the break. This is Bob Brooks. We're up against the break. Stick around. 1-877-913-5357. We'll be right back.
The Word for Today is excited to announce the new official online home for the ministry of Pastor Chuck Smith and Kay Smith, pastorchuck.org. At pastorchuck.org, you'll have instant access to thousands of hours of verse-by-verse teaching by Pastor Chuck Smith from Genesis through Revelation, and full access to special messages on subjects such as prophecy and much, much more. Also at pastorchuck.org, a full library of great teachings by Kay Smith, and a section where you can read some of Pastor Chuck's books online, all free of charge. So visit the new official online home of the Word for Today and the ministry of Pastor Chuck and Kay Smith, pastorchuck.org.
Dynamic, practical, life-changing.
There's no point in going to church and not letting the Christ who gave birth to the church on the day of Pentecost change your life.
Join us each day as Pastor Paul Shepherd applies the timeless truth of Scripture to everyday life. It's Destined for Victory on this great station.
2 p.m. weekdays on 91.3 KDKR.
One of the most common beliefs is that he will evaluate our lives, our good works and our bad, and then, like a high school teacher who's grading on the curve, he will decide who gets into heaven and who doesn't. But nothing could be further from the truth.
Dr. David Jeremiah continues his series, Signs, next time on Turning Point.
Weekdays, 9 a.m. on Bible School Radio 91.3.
Welcome back. This is Bob Brooks, and you are listening to the Special Car Corner edition of Prudent Money. 1-877-913-5357. Debbie, you still with us?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay, sorry about that. The break sneaks up on us. What were you saying there right beforehand?
We will try the procedure that you described about turning both air conditioners on full blast and adding the refrigerant that way.
Right.
But you think if for some reason that didn't work, what would be the next most likely thing, just in case?
Well, the next most likely thing is going to be that you have to have some kind of diagnostic work done, because let me just give you an example real quick. Just let me give you food for thought. That 2013 van has what we call blend air system, which means there's a little door in the dashboard that shuts closed one way to get completely cold air through the ductwork, and then it opens up a little bit at a time depending on what temperature you want to have inside your car. So if you wanted like 75 degrees, the door would go from complete cold to about, say, 3/4 of the way open, and it would mix some of the heat with some of the air and give you a precise 70-degree temperature output.
Okay.
So let's suppose for a minute that the air door was stuck wide open,
Okay.
and the air is really working good, but it's mixing with heat, and you're not happy, of course, because it's not going to be cold, cold, cold. So without doing any more, that's about all I can suggest for your brother to do. If it still doesn't work good after that, then we need some professional diagnosis so we don't go down the wrong path and start spending money on stuff we don't need. And by the way, I can help you as much as I can. If you find out that didn't work, maybe have diagnostic work done, but don't fix anything. And if you want to talk to me next Friday about what word you got from whatever place you took it to, I can kind of help you in that respect. I can advise you or see if it makes sense or whatever. I mean, I don't know. So,
All right. Yeah.
Okay.
All right. Well, thank you.
We'll be here for you, Debbie. Thank you for calling in, and Lord bless you.
Thank you. You too. Bye-bye.
1-877-913-5357. You know, and I know that you appreciate this because you've been helping people for so long, decades, literally, is that's a scary proposition when you're thinking about it. Something as big as important as the air conditioning system, and how expensive it can be for something to go wrong. And it just like you say, it's one of those finicky parts of a car. In fact, I want to ask you a question about that in a second. But it's one of those finicky parts that could be a number of things. And you're right. You could spend so much money going down the wrong path, trying to fix something that's not broken.
I'm a firm believer in diagnostic work first, because it's usually not that expensive to get the diagnostic work done. In some cases, yes, but when you spend X amount of dollars for the diagnostic work and you only have to spend $50 on the repair, it offsets, believe me. It's worth it. Because sometimes you can just start throwing money at things and, it doesn't do any good, and, you've tried everything and it still doesn't work and you get frustrated. It's just not a good practice in automotive repair.
Let me ask you a question, and this is off the top of your head. You and I didn't talk about this earlier. If you had to rank car problems, which one ends up being the hardest part of the car to actually diagnose, that could potentially cause you the most problems?
I would have to say that would fall under the category of powertrain management, as in drivability problems. The check engine light comes on and the car does this, and you're not sure why, and you, like we've talked about many times, there's codes available, and you think, let me look at the codes, which I suggest you do, but you don't use those codes as biblical guide to fixing the car. The codes are trying to tell you something, and it's up to you to interpret what's causing the car to do this, what codes I've got available to me, and how they would involve themselves or factor in, and what other symptoms am I seeing here. And it's a boiling pot of factors. You got to think about everything and try to determine what could be going on, and sometimes it's very difficult. It takes hours and hours to figure it out. So that's probably one of the most difficult ones.
So what's the talk about this diagnostic process from another standpoint? You're a mechanic. You want to bring in income. You don't want to spend hours upon hours of trying to go through the diagnostic process. I mean, from a mechanic standpoint, you can quote 100, but it could cost $400 of your time, right?
Yes.
So as a consumer, what should you look out for?
Well, here's the thing. Now, that's the million-dollar question right there. This is where you cross the borderline between guys who are just in it for the quick buck and guys who pride themselves in good workmanship. Now, I know this is going to be hard for a lot of guys to hear out there, that are, especially guys that are mechanics, but if you really want to do a good job and you really want to find out what's wrong with that car, you may not get paid for some of your time, except if you look at it the way I do. I can spend way more hours than I can charge for diagnosing a particular problem. And yes, I'm going to lose, and who wants to do that? Well, I do. You know why? Because next time when I see that, no, what I'm saying is, you learn.
Makes total sense.
You never stop learning. You never stop learning.
Right.
I'm the oldest mechanic I ever knew at this point in my life, and I'm still learn every day. So I guess it depends on who's in it for the quick, fast buck and who's in it for pride. I guess that's the best way to put it.
What are some red flags when you're talking to, in fact, you bring a car in with a complicated situation, it's stalling, or something happens if certain conditions are present, and you take it to a mechanic and the mechanic just says, well, I'll go and check it out. And what are some of the things that you should ask from a consumer before you turn your car over? Because you don't, there wasn't a whole lot of communication going on. You could end up getting a big bill that you weren't expecting. Talk a little bit about that.
Well, I would say to the consumer who is not familiar with the place that they're at and they're not sure how to trust or not this place, you might want to, first of all, you can ask any questions you want. And my philosophy has always been, after watching for years and years, I've noticed that if you ask a question, you may be a female, you may be an uninformed male who doesn't know anything about a car, and I don't mean female, I mean females generally don't know much about a car. So you're going to ask questions, and the mechanic or the technician is going to explain it to you. And here's my philosophy. If he can't articulate it in a way that you can understand, then maybe the communication barrier is not ever going to be where you need it to be with your mechanic. And maybe that's not the place to go. Because you should understand at least an elementary knowledge of what he's going to do, how he's going to approach the job, what he's going to look for, and make it clear to you what he's going to do, why he's going to do it, roughly how much it's going to cost, and this is something you should walk out of that establishment with, feeling confident that, I got a pretty good idea of what he's going to do and why he's going to do it this way, and it makes sense to me, so let him do what he does, and then he'll call me with the results, and we'll find out what's going on with my car. Because it's important that you understand, whether you know anything about a car or not, you're going to know a little bit more every time you take your car in for a repair.
Yeah, and I don't think that people really think about it, because it's one of those stressors. You got to deal with your car. You got to deal with the potential costs that you weren't expecting. You got to deal, and you just want it to get fixed and get over with. So you think if you take your car out there, it's human nature to hope for the best, and you skip over this one little word that's the most important word out of all this whole process, which is trust.
Trust.
And the thing is, it takes a lot. I think it takes a lot more trust than people think that even consider when they bring their car into a place they don't know anybody. And
I think you need to do a good job several times before you can earn the trust of that customer. Once might just be lucky shot, twice might be coincidence. I think you just need to do a good job on every car. That's it. If they trust you, they trust you. And most people will, because if you're doing the best you can do, trying to be honest and trying to do everything right, I think it will fall in place naturally, because there's no reason for a mechanic not to be able to explain everything.
Let me mention this too. What's equally important while you're asking these questions is the mechanic have a good attitude about answering those questions.
Yep, that's another thing. If he really doesn't want to take the time, I mean, we all have bad days, Bob.
Yeah, everybody's
you know,
got a bad
but
has bad
generally, they should take the time, be patient, answer your questions, whether it's on the phone or in person, and then, you know, your instinct will tell you a lot. Just trust your instinct.
Absolutely. Good stuff, Tony Joe. This is Bob Brooks. You got a question for me, please go to the website at prudentmoney.com and send it in, because we are all out of time. Till we do meet again next time. Keep the faith and have a great rest of the day.
That's all the time we have for today. Questions or comments for Bob, or to find out more great information like what you've just heard, visit www.prudentmoney.com. Be sure to join Bob Brooks again for the next edition of Prudent Money.